today to show solidarity with our German sisters. The German self-ID law, Selbstbestimmungsgesetz, came into force today. Now self-ID is illegal in Germany, and simply submitting a form to a registry office, anyone can change their legal sex, and any man can gain access to women's single-sex spaces. Women around the world are gathering to show their support for the German women who oppose this law. Many of them are gathering today in Berlin. In German, the phrase 5 nach 12 means 12 and can be used to refer to something that is just too late. It is now 12 and it is too late for German women and girls. We will now lay a wreath on the steps of the embassy, immediately after which there will be a minute's silence. Please keep the silence. Thank you.
You need to turn that up if you can. They're saying they can't hear you.
Oh, is it not loud enough?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got quite a turn there.
Okay.
Are you waiting for the wreath?
The wreath is now being laid, I think. Is the wreath being laid?
Everyone where to look. Yeah?
If you look over there,
The microphone.
please stop. You can see Andy coming through with the wreath now. Clap, 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 clap. Please now observe a minute's silence. You hold that for me, Emma. Self-ID is now law in Germany, and everyone, including the press, must go along with this or face a fine, although allowances may be made for innocent or well-intentioned transgressions. The psychiatric reports that used to accompany a gender change don't matter anymore, because a year after your initial declaration, you can just change it back again, and again, as many times as you like. It's easy, unless there's a war. Gender change applications from men made less than 2 months prior to a national defence emergency will be put on hold, which basically means no getting out of national service by saying you're a girl, lads, and shows us that they know that this system is open to abuse. Parents can now register their newborn as the sex of their choice. They can also claim the child is diverse or leave the sex blank altogether. A child of 5 is said to be able to consent to a gender change, which beggars the question, to what next might a child of 5 be said to be able to consent? And what of vulnerable and trafficked children? Such casual disregard of reality does little to protect them. The prohibition of disclosure rules which accompany self-ID mean sex offenders, any offenders really, can easily forge new identities. And while in theory single-sex exemptions can exist, in practice it will be almost impossible to challenge transgressors even when need is proven. Disclosure rules create a catch-22, which threatens all women's single-sex spaces, from lesbian club nights to public toilets. All this is law in Germany now. And Germany is not alone in authenticating self-ID. Countries including Ireland, Belgium, Luxembourg, Portugal and Spain have brought in similar laws. And just last week, up the road in Scotland, the SNP announced 24 genders that public bodies are now supposed to record in official documents. Here in England, we already have politicians declaring that babies are born without a sex, or that they can see someone's true gender identity in their soul. So it isn't foolish for women to be concerned about self-ID happening here too. We would be crazy not to be, because it is women who are primarily affected by these laws. In England and Wales, 88% of violent crime and up to 93% of sexual violence is perpetrated by men. We can see the results of our own country's flirtation with self-ID in the resulting sexual assaults by men admitted to women's prisons and refuges. Now is the time for women everywhere to speak up in them without care or consultation. The next speaker will be Alison, who is going to speak about biology. Alison W.
Step.
Marvellous. So if you speak into that really closely, do you want me to hold this now? Have you got other stuff to do that I don't know?
Right. I learnt a bit of philosophy the other day. Louder. Right. And it tells me that the material...
Louder. That's
really close. It tells me that the material truth of biology is an innate and universal thing. In other words, it applies everywhere and at all times, presumably. It is true that sexual reproduction, which almost all organisms use, involves male and female gametes, which are very clearly defined. Homo sapiens is no exception to this. It's a kingdom Animalia, a vertebrate and a mammal, where sex is determined by chromosomes at fertilisation. Every child in this country does national curriculum science in year 9, 13, which tells you that sex is determined by whether the X sperm gets there first or the Y sperm gets there first, and which one fuses with the egg. These are material facts. And other things, clownfish, their sex is not determined in the same way. It's only mammals and birds that have chromosomes. So, in all these creatures, including the plants, of course. So, even at cellular level, if you've got XY chromosomes, your cell is different, the cell membrane is different, and male and female cells behave differently, even in cell culture. It's so fundamental and unchangeable. Philosophy also talks about non-natural kinds, which are things like religion, class, social roles, and they vary because they're based on ideas. Trans ideology seems to be claiming that sex is a non-natural kind, and you can change the rules according to it. It changes sex to an idea and tries to remove humanity from the natural world, which does seem to tie in with the movement of transhumanism. Martine Rothblatt wants us to be post-human beings with chips in our brains and eventually get robots who are post-human beings. Now, we say no to this. We absolutely say no. We are humans, we are animals, and we matter. Now, because of the way mammals reproduce, we have gestation in the female body. This is all males. They all do it. They all have XY. The XX ones have gestate, have offspring, and the XY ones don't. Now, I've taught biology for over 50 years, and I am not submitting to this. I have a document, and I'm not having it. Thank you. Repeal the GRA. Repeal the GRA. Repeal the GRA. Thank you very much.
brilliant. Thank you. So, can we all move backwards off the white stuff, which is German territory? We're not allowed to be on that.
Apparently they don't have public space in Germany.
Oh, really?
Let women stand and talk.
Brilliant. Oh, sorry.
This is the way we like the pub. Is that allowed? Is it possibly not?
Okay, so the next speaker.
Jan.
The next speaker is Jan, who will be talking about the women's ponds and CRT.
Pretty much something like that.
So you have to hold.
Can we turn this thing up?
No, it doesn't go any lower. You've just got to put it really close to your mouth and hope.
Okay, I'm told this is the best it does. I'll try and shout. So, thank you, Alison. Thank you, Alison, for explaining biology to us so clearly. My mother explained it to me when I was 3, and I've understood it ever since. I'm sure you have too. We're here to fight a crazy, crazy ideology. Gender ideology undermines the rule of law, enriches big pharma and professional groups who should know better, and masks women's oppression as the only oppressed majority in the whole world. It misleads and exploits and povertizes vulnerable people. And according to Dr. Az Hashim, who should know, it lasts about 5 years in most young people who transition, and then they bounce back. However, there is hope, because every one of you here has an important organ, a brain. You can question things, you can investigate, read, research, gather data, critique, test opinions, and discuss. You can disagree with people in a civilized fashion and lead a happy and successful life, which leads people to tend to believe what you say. We all live in sexed bodies, male or female, and we always will, whatever crazy laws we pass. I don't wish to be frivolous, but some of you here may remember when the wonderful dessert, Death by Chocolate, came onto our menus. The idea being that it was so wonderful that you would die from pleasure reading it. And I would like to extend that to say what we are suffering from now is death by abstract nouns. Now, abstract nouns are wonderful things, but fake concepts like identity, which just means sameness. I do have a first-class degree in Latin and Greek, so you can trust my word on this. I couldn't manage to bring my dictionary because it was too big. But idem in Latin just means the same. So when you say I have an identity, it just means I'm like her or I'm like him. Doesn't mean any more than that. It's a false concept. There are many others. Royalty, that just means those who are in charge. Mainly because they've got a big army and loads of money to pay them. That's all royalty means. Sanctity, holiness, they just mean special. They don't mean anything apart from the fact that if they can convince you that they're important, you will do what the people in charge say. Gender just means a type of something. Love, to love something means you value it. And that means to me that you don't just say, I have a lovely mushy feeling about you. It means you act in a way that shows that you value that person. And I hope we will all act in a way that shows that we value the female sex, the reproducer of our race. Freedom. Ask questions about these abstract nouns. Freedom for whom? Freedom from what? Don't just accept, oh, freedom is a great goal. Look a little deeper. Gender ideology rots organisations. I have a theory that it mainly takes over those who were rotten from the beginning. I was lucky to get picked in 2016 by the wonderful Dr. Julia Long. Woo! And I was honoured to participate in the Pride demo for lesbian rights, where the lesbians laid down on the flag and we all made a big fuss. And at the time, I was a humanist funeral celebrant. And the humanists, this is the British Humanist Association, on whose board is a gentleman called Richie Thompson, they broke all their own procedures and made up a complaint against me, saying that because I was in that demo, I would misgender a trans person. And I would refuse to take a trans person's funeral, neither of which I would ever have done because I wouldn't have got that near. I've recently done the fertility industry is there, ready with big pharma, ready to make money out of the people who've damaged their fertility by trying to change their sex. So, fighting for women's rights like driving. You pays to look ahead. Don't just look at what's in front of you. Look at the idiot 3 cars in front of you and be ready for when he does something stupid. Another organisation rotted by ideology, the Kenwood Ladies Pond Association. I can now speak about this with authority as I spent a year on the inside. It's a bit like a day in the life of Ivan Denisovich, you know, a year in the camp. Yeah. When I went on there, I was a very good committee member. I sold merchandise. I sold complaints against me. Oh, I said, that's interesting. No one's told me. I haven't had the chance to defend myself. And the law of the land says that people have to tell you what they write about you. So I've just sent another nice subject access request into the Kenwood Ladies Pond Association. And no doubt there'll be some cheesy details in there. So these rotten organisations, we have to get inside them and we have to improve them. We can stand outside and wait, or we can get in there and we can disrupt and make a fuss. I have to say, I found out when inside the KLPA that they don't follow their own constitution, they don't follow their own rules, they wasted a lot of money on an obviously going to fail disability campaign, and to quote a very nice Telegraph journalist, they are not a committee, they are a clique. Yes. So while we're on all starting to write books about sex, not gender, then, you know, there might be something to celebrate. Germany, I really feel for our German sisters. I do feel that there's a big link between countries that went down the legalising of the sex trade and people that are readily legalising this. Look at New Zealand. Look at Germany. Massive acceptance that prostitution is real. Here, it was fought off mainly by the people who worked in job centres who said, oi, that's not a real job. We're not recruiting women into that. Back in 2008, and it all disappeared. So, you know, pat ourselves on the back here. We fought it off here.
For those who are having difficulty hearing, what you can do is go to the live stream and listen. Oh, it was 1 hour. Well, I'll get into the channel, go on the live chat, on the live stream, hopefully you can be able to hear it that way.
I'm so sorry. Bye.
That is via Mother Superior at Tomboyo that has been shared this morning. Oh, I'm not quite sure.
They keep moving away. They can't hear
To
you.
be really loud. What do you want me to say?
Well, how do we advertise this space?
Shall I announce the next speaker? Well, it's meant to be Sheila Jeffries, but she's not here.
The next speaker is Alison, who will speak about children.
You have to hold it really close to your mouth. Go up on the step, Alison. It will take me.
Ich möchte der Initiative Lasst Frauen sprechen im Namen unserer Gruppe der Frauen herzlich Danke sagen für Ihre Einladung. Wir freuen uns, dass wir uns hier in London vielen anderen Frauen in Berlin und auf der ganzen Welt anschließen können, um gegen das Selbstbestimmungsgesetz zu protestieren, das heute in Kraft tritt. I said, on behalf of our group, I'd like to thank the initiative Let Women Speak for their invitation. We're delighted to be able to join many other women in Berlin and around the world here in London to protest against the Self-Determination Act that comes into force today. We know from being ignored by the Scottish Parliament how compelling the arguments are against self-ID. A common fix is your innate gender identity, but you can change it from year to year. The Taliban's new Vice and Virtue Order has silenced Afghan women even more than before, banning them from speaking, singing, or even reciting the Quran in public. Women are being forced into complete invisibility. Iran is raping and killing women who refuse to wear the veil. Germany is banning women and men from challenging men who say they're women with the evidence of our own eyes and from protecting our spaces against them. Fines, prison, curtailing their freedom to speak. We must protest against this new law in Germany on its own lack of merit, and also in case the UK government allows Germans with self-ID to settle in our country, and even worse, tries to legislate for it here. Another crazy feature of the SPSG is that it permits parents to change their infant baby's gender at birth. And the question then is, how do they know? How do the parents know what the baby's gender is when the tiny child is too little even to undo the poppers on its baby grow? You know about CEDAW, the UN Convention that the rights to protection are intended to protect them from physical and psychological harm or exploitation, for example, so that children and young people can grow up healthily and develop properly. There are rights to receive support. This is going to run a rule through that right. Set against that is the knowledge that children are going to be trans from birth before they're able to develop an opinion about it. Remember what happened to the Reimer twins when John Money got his claws into them? Those who know, know. Those who don't, these were two young Canadian children. Bruce, later known as David, and unharmed twin Brian provided a handy control for his experiments. I'm not going to go into any detail about the experiments, but these children were traumatized by Money's experiments, and eventually the truth came out. And this boy, by now 14, who'd been experimented upon by a gender expert, resumed his male identity and became David. Neither brother recovered from depressive illness, and eventually each killed himself. Of the opposite sex. How is this going to be in the best interest of the affected child, Germany? And how will the ministry manage the rights of the child to be protected from violence, abuse, neglect, and bad treatment by their parents? From today in Germany, a 14-year-old child, the same age as when Bruce David Reimer learnt the truth about his history and resumed his natal sex, can announce the falsehood they have been indoctrinated with and a changing gender, and a parent who's been kept in the dark is forbidden by law to do anything to protect and rescue their child from the groomers. This law will devastate parental rights to protect and safeguard their child and destroy the Bundesrepublik's commitment to protect from exploitation and foster the precious rights of German children and young people. Finally, this dreadful law is going to result in a future wave of litigation from utterly messed up, psychologically and physically damaged young people. J.K. Rowling says we are watching one of the worst, or is it worst, medical scandals in a century, and Germany is presiding over a massive psychological insult to young lives. There will be a reckoning.
Thank you, Alison. Next speaker is Mel. Mel is going to read on behalf of Anne. The next speaker is Mel, who is going to speak really loudly into the microphone like I'm doing now. Okay.
Very good.
Yeah, right into the thing. Really loudly. This speech is on behalf of
Well done.
Let us also be fitting today that in Germany women are no longer allowed to express themselves truly or freely. They cannot say that a man who wants to enter women's safe spaces is actually a man. Women will have to lie and to deny the truth and to deny the evidence of their own eyes at a man who says so. If he declares himself a woman, and the elite women athletes have, you cannot flourish if you have to watch every word you say or write. You cannot lie and accommodate the preferences of gender-obsessed males. What chance will children have when gender-obsessed parents decide to deny the truth of a baby's sex at birth, or consent to gender grooming at the tender age of 4? German.
Thank you, Jules. Can you hear me?
Yes.
George Orwell is supposed to have said, in a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. We live in a time of deceit.
Yes.
That deceit is the deceit of gender identity. It is the lie that a man can become a woman by just saying the word. But the word woman is taken. It means something. And that thing is not lipstick. It's not dresses. It's not long hair. It's not a nice little feeling. It's a worry about pregnancy. Many of us will become mothers. We are not men. And because of that, we are vulnerable to sexual violence. And we are vulnerable to sex discrimination. And the state needs to protect us and recognize that men and women have different needs. The German Self-Determination Act now says that what sex means is an identity. Their law allows anyone to change the sex that is recorded on their birth record. And by doing that, it turns every law and policy that was set up to protect women against us. Reem Al-Salam, the UN Special Rapporteur on violence against women and girls, wrote to the German government. And she said, the act appears to fail to take into consideration the specific needs of women and girls, particularly those at risk of male violence. That's all of us! Yes! And she wrote to them and she said this law endangers single-sex spaces. It undermines data collection about women and girls and about boys and men, and it will harm children by encouraging them to think that they can change sex. And she wrote that it will harm freedom of belief and freedom of speech. And the German government wrote back and they said, I'm paraphrasing, don't worry, dear. They said, this law does not make any changes to existing legislation, such as the General Act on Equal Treatment, and therefore has no legal implications for access to single-sex spaces. Where have we heard that before? The Scottish Government. And yet, in 3 weeks' time, the Scottish Government is going to be in the Supreme Court arguing from sex discrimination based on our sex. My organisation, Sex Matters, will be there supporting Fulham in Scotland, arguing against this, arguing that if the law is to protect women's rights as it was designed to do, as it was intended to do, then sex must mean sex. The German government's response to Reem's letter shows what happens when you let a lie in. It turns everything inside out and back to front. They said the reality is that there is violence perpetrated against women by cis men. Cis men. Other men, as soon as you say the word, they're no risk. And it said that if a man changes his name and maybe wears women's clothes and then claims to be a woman, that this is somehow eliminating harmful gender. It takes us to black is white and up is down. So, in a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. Keep telling the truth.
Thank you, Maya. I'm going to be brief. Do we have Sabrina? Do we have Sabrina? We don't have Sabrina.
So, the next speaker is Susie. Susie, who will be speaking about sexual abuse and German connections.
Okay, there aren't that many German connections. I took it out because it was like 10 minutes long.
What?
I had to cut it out.
If you want me to hold your elbow.
Oh, thank you. I'll be all right. I'll be all right. Thank you, guys. I'll stay here. It's fine. Thank you.
Keep it right next.
Okay.
Really close to your
Right.
mouth, as loud as you can.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Louder.
Can you hear me? Louder?
Yes.
Louder! Right. Okay. A geographical accident of birth, a decisions taken by long dead men, the kindness of strangers. These are all reasons why I am a British woman today and not a German woman. Yet today we are all the women of Germany. As a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, I am well versed in how the insane actions of a few can affect millions around the world. This new law is the clearest example of this yet. Like most countries, Germany has made its share of bad decisions, but in a uniquely Germanic manner, the latest decision, the introduction of the Selbstbestimmungsgesetz, is not just a bad decision, it is a catastrophic decision for German women and girls. The ID law is based on a lie that humans have gendered souls that sometimes get trapped in the wrong body. The betrayal is all the people who have actively encouraged the creation of a ludicrous belief system that deserves no more weight than a flat earth theory. Yep. I know a little bit about this area, learning more every day thanks to the voices of my sisters around the world. Any mistakes I've made in the following are purely my own. To me, it's easier if we break it down to three parts: the perpetrators, the police and judiciary systems, and thirdly, the effects on rape counselling services. Firstly, we know that transgender identified males commit more sexual offences than their non-trans identified male counterparts. There's not much research in this area, as many countries do not even keep statistics, and as shown this week, reviews or research which doesn't support the aims of the gender lobby tend to just disappear. But there is some good data, even if it needs updating. In 2019, the UK government commissioned a survey from the Ministry of Justice which ascertained out of 129 trans-identified males imprisoned, 76 were sex offenders. This works out to 58.9%. Conversely, amongst the male general population of 78,681, the percentage was only 16.8%. Of the female prison population of 3,812, 125 were sex offenders, making the percentage 3.3%. Not only do these figures show the number of men who claim a paraphilia of transvestism are overrepresented in committing crimes of sexual violence, but also how long will we be able to trust the statistics we are being given? With male criminals being recorded as females, these uniquely male crimes are being associated with female criminality. Now men are not only demanding entry to female prisons, they are also successfully demanding free surgery and drug regimes of opposite sex hormones whilst incarcerated. The man's desire for proximity to women is accorded greater value than the desire of the woman not to be in the proximity of the man. And to me, this is the most staggering thing. Not only were these men not sent packing in the first place, they were welcomed with open arms. Women who objected would be punished accordingly. Kathleen Quinn in America had her parole cancelled after speaking out about the predatory behaviour of a trans-identified man locked up with her in the Central California Women's Facility. She was rewarded for being locked up for an additional 5 years.
Oh, shame.
There is a supreme cruelty at play here, which is unbelievably rebranded as diversity and equality. In Germany, the women at Last Freien Sprechen have carried out meticulous research in this area, contacting every state in Germany for information on male prisoners in the female estate. Berlin alone has admitted that there are 15 men already in women's prisons, and they refuse to identify the crimes committed, citing danger to the identifiability of these individuals, raising the suspicion that these crimes were well publicised at the time. Despite Germany's strict rules on identifiability, the irony here makes me sick, we do know that a man calling himself Omer Laura K. is now in the female estate after being sentenced to 7 years after being convicted of rape, aggravated robbery and extortion. And to top it all off, he also had a habit of pretending to be a female police officer and successfully attended many policing events in his disguise. He was not a member of the police. He clearly wasn't a woman, but doubting him, which any sane person would do, had been rebranded as bigotry. To me, it is clear Omar could not have got away with his ludicrous pretending had there not been collusion from others, either deliberately or not, but always from other colleagues with dubious moral standards. Around the world, we have police and justice systems heavily prioritising to explain the actions of the enablers, many of whom are female themselves, but have internalised misogyny to such an extent they are willing to be staggeringly cruel to other women, all in the name of being kind and inclusive. It is not kind and inclusive to allow men to colonise women's spaces. These special men, for whom the usual boundaries are strangely absent, will always attempt to gate crash the most intimate, private spaces, in particular groups where traumatised women gather to be held and put back together by other adult females who know also too well what it's like to have a long-held belief in a lie smashed to bits overnight. The belief was that they had been safe. That these men, and they are the very worst of men, because decent men would never transgress in a woman's space in this way. They'll be sitting there, listening in the rape crisis therapy group. He may be one of the counsellors or another member of staff. We already know how predators gravitate towards roles with easy and unsupervised access towards the most vulnerable in society, children and women. We know you are lying when you say there are no men in the group, on the ward, in the Zoom call. We know that you are willing to lie to women who have had their trust in others destroyed. If you can do that, what else are you capable of? Thinking of you specifically, Sandy Brindley. And then I wrote a bit about Cameron Downing, but to be honest, I really can't be asked because he's just a horrible, horrible man. But the point was, he was also in these group sessions, who's now in prison. This law is based on deceit and the demand that we participate in a lie of their making. It struck me when I was writing this speech that for a lot of survivors of sexual abuse, that's my son ringing, that's teenage boys ringing at the time. It struck me when I was writing this speech that for a lot of survivors, it starts with a lie that you were safe with that person, the lie that these words of reassurance are genuine and sincere. Twice in my life, I believed men when their words sounded like safety. Firstly, when he said, come outside, you need some fresh air, we'll just walk around a bit. The second time was when another man in another city said, come inside, a cup of tea will warm you up. Both times I was raped. Both times the words were nothing more than the predator's way to make someone trust him. Women live lives characterised by this knowledge that men aren't trustworthy. We know that words don't always mean what they say. Without therapeutic services post-assault, women are at risk of substance misuse, petty crime, truanting, eating disorders, to name a few. Women in prison are more likely than not to have a background of sexual trauma, which makes it all the more cruel when female prisoners are locked up with rapists and child abusers. In Germany, I'm nearly finished. In Germany, it is now impossible for any woman wanting a same-sex environment for therapeutic purposes. A quick Google showed me most places available in Germany are already welcoming to men. Women are being betrayed by everyone who goes along with the insane idea that humans can change sex, or that gender is anything more than a collection of outdated stereotypes to describe made-up ideas of femininity and masculinity. For all of the people colluding in this mass delusion, I beg you to stop and listen to voices of women. There is no longer any chance to say you did not know about the harms. What you can say is, hey, I got that wrong, I am sorry. Of course women should receive some same-sex care on same-sex wards or in same-sex groups. Of course women shouldn't be impregnated by a convicted rapist whilst locked up for their own sentences. As that behaviour is nothing short of inhumane, and we cannot believe we treated women like this. Women have been directing sunlight onto the great harms of this ideology for over a decade. Clearly, women and these few male allies have struggled against the power, influence and deep pockets of the trans-medical complex. And then Jennifer Berlick, and I read about the Arcus Foundation, that tells you exactly what we're up against. We can only defeat this if enough of us push back. We need everyone who until now has stayed silent to start using your voice, to shout that self-ID harms, and it's about time that all women rise.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bonnie. She will be speaking youth.
It's all right. There you go. That's just oh, where am I going? Really close. Can everybody hear me?
Louder.
Louder. Have I got it close enough? Oh, okay. Okay. In the 1970s, women set up the first houses. Louder.
Really loud.
Okay. In the 1970s, women set up the first houses, and they were just small houses for other women to come to escape violent men. Women made their way there with their children under their arms, and when they were taken inside the doors, they knew at last they were safe again. When the violent men turned up to find those women, and they did, other women fought them on the doorstep. For the first time, it was a war against men who abused women, and they knew it. Now we've got a different fight, but with the same kind of man. This time he wears a dress. It's harder to keep him from the doorstep. He's using the law and every manipulative trick in the book. Self-ID, as introduced in Germany today, flings the door wide open to that man. Not all violence is physical. The act of coming to places of safety for women is an aggressive and entitled one, and it is designed to hurt women. Good. And each time they go back, he might kill them. Even when she leaves, he might kill her later. Over half of women who are murdered by a man in a domestic context were taking steps to leave or had left him. When women are in domestic abuse services, refuges or counselling, they're hyper-vigilant to the presence of men. A dress will not hide him. His presence will be felt in every fibre of her body because she needs to stay alive, and she knows it's a man who could kill her. It is the ultimate cruelty to allow men lying about themselves into the one space she might be able to protect herself, feel safe, grow strong, recover, and carry on with her life, and become a survivor, not a victim. When I was trying to escape a man in a support session, I got a series of texts from the man I thought might kill me. I went into immediate panic, had to be taken out of the room and calmed down. If there had been a man in that place, I would never have gone back after the first time. A woman in that situation does not know if the man she speaks in front of knows the man who hurts her, or if he knows a man who knows the man. All men are terrifying to her at this point. The women who can no longer bear to be in those services might die at the hands of the man who hates her, because of the entitled actions of another man pretending to be a woman who also hates her, or he wouldn't be there. German self-ID law gives permission for these men to cross the doorstep like invited vampires. It cannot happen here. I've heard women saying this is not a war. Of course it's a fucking war. Those women just aren't soldiers. The rest of us, we will win the fucking war.
Thank you. We will now have a summing up by Tara, after which we're going to sing one song before we disperse. The words of the song are on the back of the 1205 sheets. So we will be singing that after Tara's spoken, and then we are dispersing. Thank you. Over to you, Tara.
Hello!
Right, so my name's Tara, I'm one of the organisers, and I would just like to say thank you, mostly. I would just like to say thank you. Firstly, we need to say thank you to our German sisters who've trusted us. So our German sisters have got a lot of trust in us to do them proud and to stand with them in solidarity. And it's been amazing. I would like to say thank you to everybody who's helped with organising it, and talking about it and planning it. These things take a lot of effort and a lot of hard work, and you've all been absolutely awesome. We come from a wide range of organisations. We're not affiliated with anything. We're just a bunch of women who thought, bloody hell, this is awful. We've got to do something. Okay?
And we did.
And we did! Look at this, it's amazing! And I want to say thank you to everybody that's here. My heart is bursting to see so many women and men who care. I know there's a lot of people who couldn't come because it's a Friday and they've got to work, and I know we can't all take the day off and jet down here to London, but it's amazing, and thank you to every single one of you from the bottom of my heart, and to all of you at home or at work or tweeting and watching. Thank you too. We've got to do something about this because it's so important. And briefly, I've got 3 reasons why it's so important that we came together today. And the first reason is to stand to support and in solidarity with our German sisters. Every single time I've been in conversation and it will sweep across America. It's absolutely amazing. So that's the first reason. The second reason is it's not too late here. In Germany, 12 means it's just too late. But it's not that for us yet. But we can see it on the horizon. It is so important that we get the message to the government, our local government, our national government. This will not stand. Don't even think about trying to bring in self-ID here. It's not going to happen. You will regret even trying it. Don't try and sneak it in the back door. Don't hide it in other legislation. We've seen how it's happened. We will not stand for it. And that part of that means that we have to be active. We have to be politically active. We have to make our voices known. They've not been listening to us. We need to make our voices known to the local government, to the national government. If you could stand for any kind of election, whatever party you're in, do that. It's huge fun, by the way. Ask me more. But if you can't do that, be an agitator. Get involved. Tell your MP, tell your councillors, tell everyone. Bring this in here. The third reason is so important, and this is a personal one for a lot of us. Imagine in a few years' time a young person comes up to you and says, what did you do in the gender wars? I don't think any of us here are going to be, we saw this huge, enormous, terrible thing heading our way, but we sat on our asses and felt bad about it. None of us are going to do that. Every single one of us who are here and who are supporting us, we're going to be, we saw the terrible. We do, when we stand up and we lean in or whatever without falling over, We get told three things, and it's the same things that they call for suffragettes. It's massive insults, apparently, according to men. They get called mad, we get called bad, and we get called dangerous. Well, the thing is, well-behaved women seldom make history. We know who does make history. It's the mad women, the bad women, and the dangerous women. And that's us. Really? So, let's be mad and bad and dangerous, and let's raise our voices. Now, hopefully, you will all have your words. There are words. Women's rights are human rights. Please won't let you forget. Oh, women's rights are human rights. Politicians of their friends may think we can be proud. Our minds and bodies will defend. Our no will ring out loud. Oh, women's rights are human rights. We won't let you forget. Oh, women's rights are human rights. This isn't over yet. So here's a hand in sisterhood. Our sex will wait and reality, we're standing side by side. Oh, women's rights are human rights. We won't let you forget. Oh, women's rights are human rights. This isn't over yet. Can anyone who has a secret secretary placard please give it back to Emma here? Thank you.
Right. Okay. Well, that's the end of the live stream. So I'm turning off now.
Everyone coming today, can we just acknowledge the tremendous amount of work that all local women have put in, but especially Tara and Alex here, who put this together. Tremendous work.
Right. Okay, that's it. Over and out.
Placards, please. If you would like,